All right, let's talk a little bit about freedom. Who doesn't like freedom? And, on the flip side of that conversation, who doesn't think about slavery and just think slavery is despicable? Well, freedom is nice. And historically, slavery has been a terrible thing. But when you're thinking about authentic recovery from an emotional disorder, one thing that a lot of people might think is that, boy, having to live by these laws and principles and structure and all that, it just doesn't sound that sounds kind of like slavery to me, a damper on my freedom. But here's what I wanted to tell you about freedom. Freedom is relative, and it's always going to be relative. Whether you realize it or not, all of us are slaves to something. Another way to say that is that we are all subject to something. So there's a choice that has to be made whenever you're going from an emotionally unhealthy way of thinking and living and trying to make that change over to a healthy way of living and thinking. In both cases, you are a slave to one thing or the other. Yeah, you're subject to one thing or the other. You're either subject to the patterns governing emotional disorder or emotional unhealth, all the chaos, the pain associated with that, or you're subject to the principles and laws governing a harmonious approach to life. When I work on a car, I can say, well, you know what? I don't like being expected to use a certain part for this car. I want to be able to use whatever part that I want to replace it with. Okay, I'm free to go out and try it that way. I am free to go to the AutoZone and ask for the part that I want and go back and try to jam that part into my engine and make it work. It's not going to waste a lot of time and energy. The end results, even if I do get the thing to work, the end result is not going to bring about the best results, right? It's not going to operate the way that the part that's supposed to be there and that is designed for that engine is going to work. So I'm free to do what I want to do. But if I'm smart, I won't rebel against the nature of that engine just because I love my freedom and I don't like being told what to do. If I'm smart and I like life to be easy and harmonious and I like to use my time in the most practical ways and my energy, what do? I subject myself to the rules and the laws governing that particular engine. You want to plant a tree. You look at the instructions that come with the tree and it says plant this time of year, plant in this type of soil, plant so that it gets this much sunlight and everything. And you say to yourself, screw that. I don't like anybody telling me what to do. What they're doing is they're cutting into my freedom of choice. I should be able to make any choice. I should be able to do and make any choice that I want. Well, you can. Nobody's stopping you. It's just not smart. And it's not going to bring you the right results. So you've paid for this tree. Why would you plant it in soil that the instructions say it won't thrive in? Or in a place in your yard where it's not going to thrive in? Anywhere where it's just going to die in 2 months? Yes, you are subjecting yourself to a thing. And so it's no different than slavery in that sense. You are a slave, that is, you are a subject, you're subjected to that way of doing the thing. And yes, it does require you to voluntarily give up a certain amount of freedom to just do things however you want. But it's for your greatest good. We typically think of slavery in the historical sense as being terrible and negative. and we think of freedom as being great and positive, right? But it is important, especially if you're, like I say, going from this emotionally unhealthy life where, you've never lived with boundaries, you've never lived in harmony with the laws and principles that govern the universe, and now you're sitting down and you're trying to motivate yourself to make that change over to becoming emotionally healthy. It might kind of seem like a Debbie Downer, like you're giving up something or you're subjecting yourself to something. You are subjecting yourself to something. But remember, you're already subjected to something. You're already the slave of something. And when you're working on an emotional algorithm, which is at the root of emotional disorders, there's no freedom in that. There's only the illusion of getting to make your own decisions and do things how you want. But you're not really. You're doing things based on what that algorithm, that emotionally unhealthy algorithm, has predetermined for you. You will react this way. You will interpret things this way. You will approach relationships this way. You are a slave. You are a slave to your emotional disorder. So escaping that and going to becoming a slave of an emotional health is a pretty darn good exchange.